Okay, so I think everything is working. Can anyone confirm that the stream is working? Okay, perfect. So let's begin. Welcome to Gugong, and welcome to one of the top games of Game Brewery. My name is Wim, and I will guide you through the rules. So we are in ancient China, and there's a new emperor, which has outlawed bribing and corruption. So bribing and corruption is out of the question. Instead, we're going to give gifts to the officials to get our will. It's very different as bribing. Before you see the board, we have 7 actions on the board. These actions are representing the officials. Then we have the player boards with our starting hand of 4 action cards. Every action card has a value, a drawing, which doesn't really say much, and some of them also have a bonus action on them, like this one. As you can see here, it has a bonus action. What that bonus action does, I will explain in a few moments. Let me try to get my hands together first. Okay, there we go. So, as you can see at the top of the board, you have the phases of the game. You can also see it on your player board right there. We will play 4 rounds, and each round has 3 phases: the morning, the day, and the night phase. Now the morning phase is skipped in the first round of the game, but I will explain anyway. At first, you're going to see who the new starting player is. During the round, you can collect this token here, and this token is the next starting player token. This gold one here is the starting player token. The silver one is the next starting player token. So at the start of a new round, whoever has this token becomes the new first player. Then we're going to fill all the traveling tiles, which are located here. If any of these spots are empty, just fill them back up with these stacks. If the stacks are empty, shuffle the discard pile and form more stacks. Then we're going to roll the destiny dice, which are located here. Then we're going to check if any decrees are active. And to see if a decree is active in the morning phase, you have to check the decree tiles, which are located here, for the sun icon. Now, normally only the level 1 decree tiles here are activated in the morning. And then we're going to collect our servants. In each round we're going to get some servants. In the first round it will be 6, and then 4, 4, and 4. If you check the player board, you already have 6 when the game begins. These 6 servants at the side of the player board are a personal reserve. You have to earn those servants in order to use them. Only the servants in this area on the player board can be used for actions. And then it's a day phase, the normal action phase. In starting player order, each player will select one of the 4 cards in his hand and trade it with one of the officials or action spaces on the board. For example, if I want to trade this one with this card, I'll just take this card here, place it on my discard pile, and place the action card in my hand on the action space. Now a few things can happen, and it all depends on the value of the card. See, this is the value of the card. If the card you place on the board has a higher value than the card that you take away, then you can do the action without any penalties. If the card you place on the board has an equal or lower value than the card you take away, then you have to do some extra stuff, because the official is not quite so happy with the gift you gave him. You can see those extra stuff on your player board. So if the card you place is lower or equal, then you either have to pay 2 servants, just place servants you have in your pool to your personal supply, or you have to discard another card in your hand in order to do the action, or simply forgo the action. So to summarize, if you place a card, if you trade a card and it has a higher value, you can do the action. If you trade a card and it has a lower or equal value, you either have to pay 2 servants or discard a card, or forgo the action entirely. But the main thing to remember is that you have to trade a card. You can't just skip your turn as long as you have any cards in your hand. Sorry. Now, what do the actions do? First action is the travel action. Each action also has 2 different effects, and you have to choose which effect you're going to use. First effect is always the cheapest, but also the less powerful. So the travel action. If you do this action, you move your traveler, which is this horse meeple, 1 space. Now the first time you're going to move your traveler, just place it anywhere on the board on the travel space. The second action you can do is pay 2 servants in order to move your traveler 2 times. It's a double arrow. For the entire game, if there is a red number, you have to pay the servants or the points or whatever. If there's a white arrow, you gain the points, the servants, or whatever. Like jade, you can also collect jade. Okay. Now these travel tokens, if your traveler lands on top of a travel token, you immediately take the bonus of the travel token. In this case, it's 1 servant, taken from your personal pool to your player board, and I'm just trying to get the controls. So you flip the travel token and you place it here on top of your player board. Whenever you want, you can either discard 2, 4, or 6 of those used travel tokens, If you discard 2, you gain 1 servant from your general supply in this pool here. If you discard 4, you gain 2 points. And if you discard 6, you get 1 jade. And the jade has to come from this pool here. Each jade is worth some points at the end of the game. If you get points during the game, you just adjust your points marker here on this track. Now, one thing you might notice is that there are also bonus actions on the card. If you play a card with a bonus action, well, that's a very good. That's a very good thing, because then you get, like I said, a bonus action. You don't have to do the bonus action, but if you want to do it, you have to do it before you do the action where you place the card. So in this case, you should do this action first before you do this action. Each bonus action icon can be found here. So this action here corresponds with this action. This is the action of the heavenly palace, or the Palace of Heavenly Purity, for short. If you do this action, your envoy will take 1 step on this track. Now in the base game, you can't go back. If you do the more powerful action, you pay 2 servants to move your envoy 2 steps, and to move your intrigue marker, which is located here in the intrigue action, move your intrigue marker 1 step. Like that. And this is 2 steps, but you get 1. Now this action may not seem much, but is very, very important. Because if you don't reach the final step of this track, you end the game with 0 points. All the points you gather during the game, they don't amount to nothing. You have to end your envoy here on one of these 3 steps. And of course, the first player to reach the palace may choose which space he will take in. But if you don't reach the end, you can't win the game, no matter what. Okay. Third action is the Great Wall of China. You're going to help build the Great Wall of China. The first action is just place one of your servants on one of these squares. Second one is you pay 1 servant to the general supply to place 2 of your servants from your player board on the wall. And depending on the number of players you have in the game, the Wall of China will be finished when one of the servants is placed under the square corresponding to the number of players. So for example, this is a 2-player game. If one of the players places a servant here, the wall is finished, and we're going to the wall scoring. The player with the most servants will get 3 points, and his envoy will move 1 step on the palace track. So it's important to have a lot of servants on the Chinese wall. Then, after the scoring, all players who have any servants on the wall may choose an intrigue bonus. Now the intrigue track is not discussed yet, but let's say here with my intrigue marker, I can choose an intrigue bonus. I will have to pay 1, 3, 5, or 7 steps, so steps backwards, to get the bonus. If I take 1 step back, I will get 1 servant. 3 steps back, I will get 2 servants. 5 steps back, I can place a destiny die at the top of the board, to any number I want. The meaning of that will be made clear soon. Or I take 7 steps back and I take 1 jade. Now this intrigue track, what's it all about? If you do the intrigue action, you take 1 step and you take this token if it's still available. So the first one who does the intrigue action will become the first player in the next round. You can also pay 1 servant to take 3 steps, but you don't get the first player token. Now this intrigue track will solve all ties during the game. If you move on the track and you end up on the same space as another player, you just go on top of that player. What does it mean? The player who is highest on the intrigue track wins all ties. So if you're on another player, you're higher than that player, you win ties with that player. So if you have the same amount of points, the same amount of servants for something, if you can do something with that player at the same time, all those ties, every possible tie in the game is solved by this track. Whoever is highest wins. It's as simple as that. Then we have the jade action. If you do this action, you just pay a number of servants and take 1 jade. How many servants? Well, it depends. If these are still available, you might want to choose to pay 2 jade. But as you can see, these jades will be depleted soon. Then you have to pay 3 servants, 4 servants, or 5 servants. Now this pool of 5 servants is unlimited. So normally you can just take jade as much as you want. Now, what does this jade do in the game? At the end of the game, 1 jade will be 1 point, 2 jades will be 3 points, and so on and so on, until 5 jades will be 15 points. And every jade thereafter will be 2 extra points. So it can stack quite a lot. Now we have 2 actions left. The 6th action is the decree action. Decrees are basically permanent in-game bonuses. To do the decree action, you have to pay a number of servants equal on the decree. So the level 1s is 1 servant, level 2s is 2 servants, and the level 3s is 3 servants. Plus 1 servant for each servant already on that decree. So if you're the first one, you don't have to pay anything more than the basic cost. But let's say the white player is already on this decree, and I will have to pay 1 servant plus 1 servant, so 2 servants if I want to place my cube on this decree as well. If you do the action, you gain the points as shown on the decree. The level 3 decrees give you points at the end of the game. You might already have noticed that there are red victory points and purple victory points. The red victory points are immediate victory points, and the purple victory points are gained at the end of the game. I see an icon here that I didn't explain. If you're at the top of the palace track and you gain more steps, you just gain 1 point for each of those steps. And then the last action is the canal, the Great Canal action. You see at the side of the player board you have 3 ships. Okay. If you do the canal action, you can either place one of your servants on that ship and move your ship 1 space. Or if you don't have any ships on the canal, you just place one of your ships on the first free harbor. So each of those spaces is a harbor. If the white player wants to place a ship, this harbor isn't free anymore, so he has to place it on the first free one, this one. Or you can pay one servant to place 2 servants on that ship. But as you can see in the icons, the powerful action does not allow you to move the ship. If a ship is full with 3 servants, as you can see on the ship itself, you can choose to dock at a harbor, remove the ship, remove your servants, and take the harbor bonus. You can do this whenever a ship enters a harbor. For this harbor you gain 4 points. For this you gain an extra action card, and the extra action cards are located here. So you just take one of those cards, which means you have an extra action for the rest of the game. And this one is pretty special. You get the double worker. And if you look at your player board, you can see those bonuses and the ships as well. So let's say I dock at the harbor with 4 points. I remove my ship and remove my servants. One of the servants has to be placed here to check that I already got the 4 points. If I want the extra action card, I have to place one of the servants here. If I want a double worker, I have to place one of the servants here. It's just a little mechanic to limit the number of bonuses you can take. So you can only take the double worker once, this one twice, and this one I believe 3 times. Now the double worker, pretty fun. If you can place a servant, you can place the doubles worker, and it counts as 2 servants. If you have to, let's say the double worker ends up in this general pool, if you get 1 worker, you can take the double worker, because how do I explain it better? If you earn 1 worker, you can take the double worker. If you have to pay 2 workers, you can pay with the double worker because it counts as 2. I hope that's a bit clearer. You can also see the double worker icon on the actions. So 1 servant can also be substituted for a double worker. So with 1 double worker and 1 servant, you fill up your boat. Things will get much quicker with the double worker. You fill up your boat more easily. You cover more squares here in the wall. Well, you'll see for yourself. Well, the actions continue until everyone has passed. And then we go to the night phase. Then we're going to check the destiny dice. And every player takes their discard pile of action cards and checks their value with the destiny dice. For every value that corresponds with one of the destiny dice, they gain 1 extra servant from their general pool. The player who has the most similar cards gets 3 points and 1 step with their envoy. Remember, if several players have the same amount of similar cards, corresponding cards, the player with the highest intrigue will get this bonus. And then last but not least, all the ships move 1 step on the canal. This also means that some players may dock their ship if it's full. But this is an automatic move, you can't stop it. So if this means that your ship sails off the board, it's lost. So it goes back into your supply, and the servants are placed back into your general supply here. At the end of the 4th round, after the 4th night, These 4 steps are followed for the end scoring. The wall is scored again. Then the decrees give points. Then you add the points of the palace track, and then you add the points of jade, and that's the final score. Again, if there's a tie, the one who's highest on the intrigue track wins the game. That was the explanation of the game. Pretty simple rules, but a lot of actions. So there's 7 different actions with almost all of them, except for the jade one has 2 different actions you can choose from. But I will remain here for a while so you can ask questions. Is there anything not clear at the moment so I can explain a bit more?